Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lily, and I'm on the marketing team here at Velosio, and I am so excited to have you all here for today's webinar to discover VelosioPay. It's going to be a great session. Before we get started, I do need to cover a few housekeeping details. You may have noticed that you're currently on mute, but don't worry, you can still interact with us by submitting any questions using the question box located on the GoToWebinar panel in the upper right-hand corner. If you run into any technical issues during the session, feel free to use that same question box, and we'll assist you as soon as possible. We will try our best to address all your questions during the presentation, but if we happen to run out of time, don't worry, our team will follow up with you via email, or you can connect with your Velosio account manager for further details. Also, I do just want to remind you that we will have a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card at the end of the webinar, but you must be in attendance to win. So hang out with us. You may win some money. All right, let's get started. I'm excited to introduce Jeff Sewin, Eric Myers, and Patrick Hodo. Thanks for joining us. Jeff, I'll let you take it away from here.
Thank you very much, Lily. And thank you everyone for attending today. Welcome, Velosio customers and prospects. My name is Jeff Sewin, and I'm the Director of IP here at Velosio, and I'm thrilled to have you guys here today. At Velosio, we pride ourselves on being able to be your trusted advisor through your journey, whether you're ERP, CRM, wherever you happen to be. We listen to your needs, and we create or deliver the best solutions tailored to just for you or for your evolution. Today, I'm excited to talk about VelosioPay. You might be asking, what is that? At the high level, think about having this amazing new system that you have, but no easy way to get paid. VelosioPay changes this by adding seamless payment processing, including credit card and ACH, along with an online portal just for your customers so they can quickly view and make payments to you. So sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us. Now I'm very excited to hand it over to Eric and Patrick, who will dive into the details of the VelosioPay. Enjoy the webinar.
Thanks, Jeff. So just a quick look at our agenda today. So I'm sure everybody can see that up there. So obviously we're in our introductions. And then we'll jump into talking a little bit about digital payments trends and talk about some of the industries that we work with quite a bit. And then after that, we're going to be going into some of the operational challenges and solutions and some of the features in our solution. After that, Patrick's going to take us on a tour of the product, so we'll be able to see that. And like Lily mentioned, if you come in with any questions while we're going through this all, feel free to drop those into your chat. So starting off, just want to highlight you can see a couple statistics here, but really what I think of when I look at this is that simplicity is key when you're providing a modern checkout experience. And of course, I think we all know, especially since COVID and since we've all changed ways since then, and especially now in 2025, that digital payments are continuing to grow significantly. And the value for VelosioPay is pretty simple. It's our goal is to really save the company that is using VelosioPay money, but also additionally to save your staff time. So not only do we try and make it easy for your customers to be paying, but also make it easy for your back office staff to be able to be working with those transactions. So I see that Lily has the first panel question that we got up there. So as you guys come working through that, just curious as to know what types of payment methods that you guys are currently using. So as we start to move forward, really want to ask you first, quick question, Patrick. When people bring up payments, I get asked a lot about in-person payments and accepting credit cards on location. What industries do digital payments really benefit the most?
Digital payments, as far as like wallet payments and things of that nature, I mean, along with credit card payments, really are going to span across the board, right? So a lot of people want to be able to pay anywhere they are. So if they, for instance, are in your store or they're online or they are calling you, they basically want to use the method of payment that they favor. So whether that would be their wallet payments like Apple Pay, PayPal, versus their card on file versus their ACH or bank payments, and all of them are going to be available through VelosioPay. So it's kind of it's pretty awesome that people are able to do that and use whatever method of payment they like. So,
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jeff.
you bet.
Uh, so, um, yeah, so as you can see, sort of what Jeff was talking about, excuse me, what Patrick was talking about is it's more than just, working through either in-person payments or e-commerce payments. Um, when you're working in a card call center or card not present environment, and really focusing on all types of payments, where business to consumer payments used to be considered more the norm. As we move forward, we can really get business to business and business to consumer really merging into one type of digital format.
Uh-huh.
So now we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you guys that we see often here. Patrick, I know that you have worked a ton in terms of working with different organizations across the Microsoft ecosystem. What would you share along with the challenges that we're showing here in terms of what you see from organizations on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of speak to some of these because a lot of times these are pretty common, if you will, challenges that people find when they're processing payments in either Business Central or finance operations. And that is that on an order to cash scenario, you really are kind of dealing with a couple of things going on. One is that a lot of times orders aren't as straightforward as everyone would like them to be, meaning that people, when they place orders, you might not have it in stock, or you might be fulfilling the order in multiple shipments. And if that is, or you might not even know what the shipping is right up front. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll actually have these challenges, but the payment software really is kind of stuck in that kind of golden path of, take a payment and ship it out and we capture the funds. So the software that VelosioPay brings enables you to do all of that kind of seamlessly. So for instance, if you do have a split shipment, we have the ability to automatically reauthorize orders at shipment, so that you're not having to kind of manage those transactions over and over again. Also, there is this ability to do what we call overages, where you know that you're going to have to add shipping onto the order. So we have the ability to add a little additional amount of your own defining onto every authorization or transaction that you have, so that you can kind of make sure that when it comes time to actually ship, that the amount is going to be captured, and you're not having to kind of create more transactions to kind of deal with it. But the last one that's really interesting is when you tokenize the card, right? A lot of times people don't know what that actually means, but it essentially means that what we're going to do is, instead of storing the credit card information in the software, we'll actually replace it with what we call a token. And when those tokens come through, we will actually go ahead and replace the card so that you don't actually have it. But when we go through and automatically start authorizing those amounts or doing those overages, we will actually be able to automatically charge the token, the card on file, without having any PCI issues that we have to worry about, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. Speaking of PCI, what are some of the ways that we can help companies when it comes to PCI compliance?
Yeah. Well, there's PCI 4.0, and they are literally in about a week. April 1st, PCI 4.0.1 is getting released. So some of the ways that we are trying to alleviate some of the PCIs in BC, for instance, when you actually enter in the card, you're not actually entering in the card into Business Central. It's in a hosted form. So you don't have to actually worry about the fact that Business Central is in scope for PCI purposes, which is great, because then when you go through and actually have to fill out that paperwork, you don't actually have to kind of go through and answer all the questions. Are you doing this or doing that? Which is great. The other thing that you can do, and with VelosioPay is an add-on, is that you can actually use a customer portal as well to kind of push the the actual card entry to the customer themselves. So they're the ones actually entering in the card, they're the ones entering the banking information, and they're the ones that are actually processing everything. So that way, as a company, you're not having to kind of deal with any of that information, and you're never in scope, which is great.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Patrick.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the solutions. And so when you talk about the solutions, obviously you did mention Business Central. I
Yep.
think obviously we could work with that. Is it just Business Central we're going to be talking about today, or do we also do we work with F&O?
Yeah, VelosioPay actually works with F&O as well. So if you do actually use finance and operations, you can use VelosioPay, and soon you'll be able to use VelosioPay even in Dynamics 365 for sales or
Okay.
field service. So you're going to have the ability to kind of cover all those different areas.
Yeah. And field service is interesting. That's probably the topic I've been discussing the most with a number of my clients lately.
Hmm.
It's just really, one of the biggest things is, it's taking that digital payment experience and, taking that into the field. What are
That's
some of the most common things you see with field service solutions?
Well, a lot of people want field service to do a number of things, and so there is actually a really big initiative for Microsoft uh, to have Business Central and field service as one solution. So people tend to have one of two different kind of workflows that they use with field service if they're using Business Central or F&O, and that is that the first one is that they authorize the work orders at the beginning of the day through
Okay.
the ERP solution, and then when the field service person is out in the field, they actually perform the work and then close the ticket, meaning that we're going to capture the funds. That is one workflow that you can support. The other is that which is a little bit more kind of intensive, is that the field service personnel have an actual pen pad, some form of payment that
Okay.
they take into the field. And that is also something that we support, especially with VelocioPay, who's partner Fortis. You can actually use a number of different devices, which would include PAX devices and GenCode devices, where those personnel out in the field can actually take in-person payments, which is that's kind of the golden ticket in a lot of respects.
Yep.
That's what people are looking for. Yeah,
Cool. Thanks for that. I'll let you keep
you're
going with
welcome.
the other solution aspects of it.
Hmm. Yeah. So in these key features within both products, a lot of people are looking for these key features, and because to take payments these days is really kind of one of those things where people are really looking to automate the process and also be able to have complete control over it. So the first thing is that on the sales order side, in order to cash, if you will, the days of just being able to say, well, I'm going to take a credit card and this one credit card and actually push it through, it's a little bit antiquated, right? It's kind of the simplistic kind of view. A lot of more sophisticated pieces of software allow people to split payments, have multiple cards, or take payment through a bank, through ACH. All of that is available through VelosioPay to where you have these feature-rich sales orders. But beyond that as well, also kind of the ability to have a simple process. So there's ways within both products, Business Central and F&O, where you can literally click one button and it will authorize the entire order, put it on the customer's preferred method of payment, and process the order with just click of one button, which is great. So you have the ability to do both of those things. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. The other
That's
one
awesome.
that a
Yeah.
lot of people are really wanting is, what we call AR automation, which is this kind of, I alluded to it earlier, is this idea of click to pay, where, I want to be able to be on the phone or send an invoice to a customer, and they get a link via email or, with a PDF to where they can click on it, check out, actually see the invoice and pay all within one step, kind of alluding to your one-click checkout at the beginning of the webinar. That is actually something that is available as well. You can use a customer portal. It's all hosted through Microsoft Azure, and the customers can pay. You have less friction, and you know that they have actually performed the payment ahead of time. And then lastly, a lot of companies might have multiple lines of business. So they might have an e-commerce scenario versus phone orders. And so they have different merchant accounts. Again, you want to be able to have the flexibility in the software to be able to support that. And so the VelosioPay does have that ability across the board to actually take payments across multiple merchant accounts. So even if it's as simplistic as an e-commerce versus phone orders, or as sophisticated as having multi-countries, and being able to support that, you can, like, you have a US and Canadian presence, we can do that as well.
Okay, thanks for that. And I know
Yeah.
that while you're talking through that, we went through one of the poll questions. We talked about allowing customers to schedule open invoices. Anything you recommend in terms of when people are, the majority, it looks like 67% of the people were saying they were considering it. What are sort of the key things you talk about? I would think you point out to customers when they're considering scheduling open invoices.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, you want to look for something that enables. Sometimes people call it auto pay, where perhaps there's a due date on the actual transaction, and it'll automatically process the transaction for the customer. That is one that's a biggie that comes up. The second one is personalized communication. So Business Central does have the ability to do emails within Business Central that allows you to kind of send stuff out. But in a lot of respects, we find that if you're sending out links in a fairly generic email, a lot of people kind of will tell you that, oh, our people don't click on that because they're told not to. It looks like a
Yep.
phishing email, things of that nature. So you really want it to be branded correctly. Make sure that it's coming from your email address, so that when they get those emails, they actually have they're not sitting there thinking, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble by working or clicking through this. One of the things that we suggest is that you send out what we call welcome emails, which are fairly common, to just let the person know, hey, these things are coming. This is a safe URL, that kind of thing. And the software actually allows you to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point because security is, yeah, it's funny how everybody's become so trained by our IT departments to be cautious on links. So thanks for highlighting that.
Sure
I
thing.
know that especially one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I know I talk to our partners and customers quite a bit about is you know the perception that credit card and all sort of pricing and everything can be very complex. What's
Yep.
sort of the biggest factor that you think of when you think about trying to make things more simple from that complexity?
Well, a lot of folks to this slide, to make things simple, people people tend to talk about the kind of the, I wouldn't say it's the hard part, but the part that kind of is the thorn in your side when you start taking card payments or ACH payments is the reconciliation, which
Yeah,
is that all of a sudden you're getting these deposits from the bank, and meanwhile you have all these transactions that have flowed through in your bank deposit form. So what we've tried to do is make it easy to where we reconcile or consolidate all those AR payments into the bank module as one transaction, because that's how it gets deposited from the bank, making it
yeah,
easy to reconcile, right? You can just go through and do a one-to-one reconciliation. Whereas with a lot of other processors and other software payments, you're looking at 20 different transactions for the day versus this one deposit, and you're sitting there having to kind of scratch your head and try to figure that out. Um, the other one is that we've received this payment. What invoice or what invoices actually are settled against that? And our
yeah.
software actually automates that part so that you don't actually have to go through and try to figure that out as well. So that makes it really simple as far as your AR staff is concerned, sitting there having to figure this, what are we applying this to? It's already done for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's all enabled through that customer portal we talked about, but also through, just the overall functionality within the Dynamics products that enables that easy reconciliation. It makes it simple, like you were saying.
Yeah, that's actually, one of the things I think I hear the most from our customers is where they save time is with bank reconciliation. So
Right.
appreciate you going through that much in that
Sure.
detail. Yeah. One of the things, I guess, the trends that I have, heard the most from, the past few years, past few months or this year, I guess I'll go through them sort of, one by one. One is the use of ACH.
Yeah.
I think that one of the biggest cost savings for people to be accepting payments is using ACH, and I think it's just become more prominent. Second thing that I've heard quite a bit about is surcharging, um,
Mhm.
and the ability to pass along a lot of those a lot of the cost of accepting a payment to the customer that's paying it.
Yeah.
Are those in line with what you've been hearing, and any extra thoughts you'd have on those?
Absolutely. People are trying to save money.
Yeah,
Taking credit cards are a great way of getting payment now, but then it comes with a cost. And so people are looking at other methods of payment, like for instance, you were suggesting ACH or e-checks is another that comes up. So the issue, of course, is that every different method of payment has a little bit of a give and take. ACH takes a little bit longer to clear and things of that nature. One of the things that we also have noticed is that there are like tools like Plaid that are out there that allow, instead of having the customer have to remember a routing number and an account number, you actually have some interfaces where they go in and log into their bank account and it actually pulls all that information for them. So it's actually pretty cool, and there's a lot of features out there to really simplify that whole ACH thing. Another one that actually is starting to come up quite a bit, which we do support as well, is some people are starting to use Venmo for business
yeah,
transactions, which is really interesting to me.
yep.
But yeah, it's but we can support that as well through Velosio. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I actually just made a business phone on Venmo this morning. Uh, well, it related to what we're talking about with field services. I've seen that much more prominent where, people, specifically people that come service your house or anything like that, will just be like, yeah, just, send you a text with a Venmo link on it and be able to go ahead it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, awesome. So I think you can see too, we're looking at the panel, excuse me, the poll that we've got there about how people are currently managing collections. I guess I'm not necessarily surprised that manual is a little bit prevalent there. What are any thoughts that you have in terms of how that currently works?
I would really suggest the portal option is a low cost option to be able to give customers the ability to manage and pay for their invoices without having to touch them. I mean, no one likes to get a phone call or make the phone call to get payment. And with the portal or a customer portal available, to where they can kind of go through and look at the software. In fact, we can show it real quick and just in so that people can see what it looks like. But it just makes it you're cutting down on the amount of time that you're working the phones to try to collect payment, and then also trying to give them options to pay to your suggestion earlier on surcharging. What's really great is like within the customer portal, they can actually see, oh, if I use my credit card, I'm going to get surcharged. Whereas if I use my bank account, I'm actually going to not be surcharged. And so it's kind of a win-win for everybody. They're encouraged to pay, and you're saving money on the transaction, and they actually have the visibility to know, oh, yeah, you're kind of, behaviorally, kind of steering them in the right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know we talked about trends in ACH surcharging as well. Probably the one other thing that I hear quite a bit outside of security, which we actually did hit on as well, is really what is omni-channel. So
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind sort of walking us through that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So omni-channel for everybody is the ability. A lot of people talk about omni-channel as like is the ability for a customer to use the essentially same card. Remember we talked about tokens earlier across your organization. So whether they are coming in person and want to use a card in a device, like we talked about in field service, or perhaps through something called counter sales, where they're coming in and coming into your office and wanting to pay in person, to placing an order online versus calling up, you actually have their card as a token, and so
Yeah.
that they don't actually have to read the card out to you over and over again. They can actually know that you have securely stored their card in a place where you can actually take their payment, apply it to whatever situation that they're in, and you can really take away what at least people in the business call friction. You're making it really
Yep.
easy for the customer to be able to pay in that case.
That's awesome. Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
you're welcome.
Awesome. Well, I think we're getting to the exciting part I'm looking forward to quite a bit too, is actually get in to see you stare at that. So let me stop sharing so you can get in there.
You
And
bet.
while we're doing that, there's also another another poll up there. So is automation a prioritization for your organization in the coming year? So interested to hear from everybody on that.
So I'm going to start off with Business Central. I think we will kind of see if people are interested in F&O. We can actually go and do that as well. So with Business Central, everything is very straightforward as far as taking payments. I'm going to use order to cash as a kind of an example to start off with, and I'm just going to go do or create a sales order. Um, I am sure that everyone on this call that has dealt with Business Central in the past has actually done this so we're going to kind of follow along and just create an order for our customer. The customer is called VelosioPay, so it's super super easy to do that. It's usually a little bit quicker than this, but we'll just kind of pick this customer out. Of course, when you're doing demonstrations, it starts giving you lag, right? So every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to pick out the Velosio customer here eventually. There we go. I'll just pick out an item and a quantity. And then we get to the fun stuff. So, okay. So up here in the ribbon, you'll notice that there's a little payments button. Obviously, that's not standard. But with VelosioPay, you have a number of different options as far as payments are concerned. Now, one of the things that people have given us feedback on is like we talked about, is they want an easy button, meaning
Yeah.
that I want to do as few clicks as I can to actually get this paid and off to the races, right? So you actually have a button over here on the right that's called auto authorize. And essentially, if the customer has a method of payment already on file with you and they consider that to be their preferred method of payment, you can go and click that button. It will take the amount. It will authorize the order, and that's it. You don't have to do anything. I'm not going to do that right now, but you literally click on the button and it says authorized. So super easy. The other end of the spectrum, which is kind of your more powerful aspect, is what we call the payment workbench. The payment workbench essentially allows you to go through and pick your method of payment. So for instance, in this case, we're going to use a card, but we could go through and say, I want to pay through ACH. We can even take cash if you're really, kind of, I don't know if that's really applicable to over the phone, but you never know. You can also do PayPal. That is something that people can pay with. And you can limit these. So you can say, for this customer, I only want to do card and ACH. At this point, you'll notice that we're either going to authorize the order or take a deposit. Sometimes for some companies, they'll say we make things order, by they're a custom order, or we're just going to take a deposit, meaning that we're actually going to take the cash today. The authorization is where we're putting a hold on their card for purposes of shipping or fulfilling later. You'll notice that there's a terminal here. That terminal is essentially the different merchant accounts that you have. We automatically are defaulting in for this user that's VelosioPay. So that's an easy one. And then the last one is that you have a payment card, which so if they have a card on file, they can go through and you can pick that card on file, just like we talked about a little while ago. It's a token used across the organization with the omni-channel. It's super awesome to be able to do all that without actually having a key in their card. But if you do need a key in their card, you certainly can. You just say create a new payment card. It's going to bring up, like we talked about, a little interface that's on the internet, not through BC, so that you can actually key in their information securely and not have to kind of worry about Business Central has got this credit card number. It's all in a different area, so you don't have to worry about that. A couple of notes. The first is, if you remember, we talked about overages, which is where we might want to have shipping ahead of time. In this case, we don't have overages. We also have the ability to surcharge if we want to. It's a compliance surcharging solution where we actually have a company that specializes in surcharging, that knows that the billable address is in a state where we can surcharge. It's only a certain amount, et cetera, et cetera. That's all available and inherent within the product. So you're kind of good to go in this case. Now, if we wanted to, we could actually split this transaction across different methods of payment. We actually have a company that we were talking to that has a 50% deposit and they authorize the remainder of the order. And you can see in this case, that's not a problem at all. Absolutely can do that. The other thing that I would point out is you'll notice that there's this little email button up here where we can actually go through, and from here we can actually send the order to the customer, like we talked about as well, actually
Yep.
requesting that they enter their card. They go ahead and go to the portal and check out. So all of this is all available in one place. You can do it all from here. But the nice thing is, if we want to, we can just click on the process button, authorize the order. It goes off to VelosioPay. And actually, if we want to, it'll actually automatically send the receipt to the customer. That's what you just saw, showing us that the transaction went through. We're good to go. At this point, the order is ready for us to ship and invoice. And when it invoices, it's going to actually capture the funds automatically, create the deposit slip or the deposit journal. I'm sorry, and do everything automatically. It's pretty awesome. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Oh, that's great.
Cool. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that real quick. So if we post it, we'll ship an invoice. It'll capture the payments for us. Oh, maybe not, because the posting dates are not in my range. I guess, I didn't do that. It opened up the date. But at any rate, we know that it'll invoice and pull through. Now, some people will say, well, order to cash is not that big a deal. We have a lot of folks that do on account. The nice thing is that if you want to, you can actually utilize VelosioPay for collections. So what you would do
Okay.
in that case is that you can actually go back through, go to the customer, which would be the Velosio customer.
Yep.
From here, you'll notice that you again have this little payments button, and then you can go in and do what we call customer collections, where you can actually see all of their actual invoices aged, and you can go through and select the invoices and take payment from here as well. Again, even sending them an email with the card request saying, can you go ahead and pay these invoices? It looks like VelosioPay is totally up to date, so we don't actually have any invoices for them to pay. I'm glad to see that. But everything is available from here. So even if you do payments through in arrears, taking payments after the fact, VelosioPay will be able to take that kind of transaction as well.
Awesome. Hey, one thing that came up while you're doing that, Jeff, is if say I've got a card on file, and something happens to my card, so I'm out traveling and I lose it, or it just gets replaced.
Yep.
Is that something that you're able to help with?
Yeah, so a lot of VelosioPay partners with a company called Fortis. Fortis has a thing called account updater. An account updater, basically those tokens that we were talking about. The nice thing about tokens is that since it's not the actual card number, if the card gets updated on the back end from Visa or MasterCard, the token can and most of the times does get updated automatically as well. So when we actually use those tokens, even if their card number changes, the token actually still be good. So there's a concept called a network token. There's a lot of different types of tokens, but for the most part, the customer is not inconvenienced at all. They can actually keep using the same account without actually having to know the number. It's also
That's actually
same thing happens when expiration dates happen. Expiration dates can hit, and now the card's not any good. Well, with account updater, we can actually update the expiration date as well.
thanks for that.
You bet. Let's see. So if you don't mind, so we've talked a lot about the portal. So if you don't mind, maybe we can go look at it real quick just for fun.
That'd be great.
Okay, so the VelosioPay uses this portal that's out in the in Azure. I'm just going to use an email address, and what happens is that instead of the customer actually having to know a password or you guys have to manage those passwords, we use multi-factor authentication that's actually been delivered to me over my phone to actually log into the system. That came to my phone, but sometimes people will say, well, gosh, I want it to be via email, or I have a landline as another one that actually comes up, and you can actually get it to call you instead of actually having a PIN. But overall, it's just a really secure way of logging into the portal. From here, the customer can actually see if they have any pending transactions, which will be an order or an invoice. They can actually go through and add any cards that they might have on file. They can actually add a card or a bank account, all from the portal. So they can go through and say, you know what, I want to add a card, and they can tokenize that card. So let's just do that real quick. And let's just call ourselves John Wayne for now. We're going to be in the United States, hopefully. You'll notice that as I'm going through here, that everything is made to be kind of enterprise ready, right? So if you wanted to make it multi-currency, multi-country, the software is going to support that. So even though we're putting in the United States, we could go through and put in a different country, and that's fine too. You'll notice in this case, we've tokenized the card like we talked about a little while ago. And if we went and looked at my cards, we would see that there's a bunch of cards. There's a card that I had already on here. So in what we can do, if you remember, the customer can actually indicate that it's a primary card as well. So that when we were talking about the easy button, they can actually say, this is the card that I want to use. In fact, if they go to their user options, they can actually select whether they want that to be ACH or a bank account. Right, so they can actually say, you know what, I want you to use my bank account from here on out. So everything is really pretty straightforward, really easy to use, clean, and the customers, really, we've gotten really good feedback. In fact, when they get their transactions, sometimes they say, hey, can you give me all my outstanding invoices? All they have to do is click on Export to Excel, and they have it right there.
Awesome.
One of the other things we talked about is like this checkout process. So if I was to go and look, you can actually see what a checkout would look like. We could send them an invoice. They would see the amount was $350. They could see that that there's an order and invoice available. In fact, if I refresh, I bet the bank account will actually show up here as a little tab as well. So they can go through and actually pick their bank and add a bank account, and then they would just pick the card that they want to use. They see how much they're going to process, and off they go. It's really that straightforward. If surcharging was enabled, we would actually see the surcharge amount as well across the board. So you would see, if you went back into the portal here, if I clicked on this, there would be an additional field here that would say the surcharge amount. So they would actually visibly be able to see the surcharging as well. Yep.
And When we talk about surcharging, I know that there are some regulations around surcharging. How do we address that here with VelosioPay?
Right. So what we have, we partnered up with a company that does surcharging as basically their bread and butter.
Okay.
They're the one that tracks all of the compliance issues. Before we actually send a transaction, we actually send it to them with the first 4 or 6 digits of the credit cards that they know, like you can't surcharge debit cards, for instance, or
Yep.
prepaid cards. So they will actually come back and say, oh, yeah, this card's eligible for surcharging. They're in Idaho. That's also available for surcharging. And based on certain factors, they might say, but you're only going to get charged by the processor 2.5% or by Visa 2.5%. So that's
Okay.
in the rules say that you can only surcharge what you actually are getting are charged.
Yeah.
So it'll say your rate is 2.5%. So what's great is that they're a little bit like a collection agency in that they just charge you a little bit of what you're actually surcharging. So the cost is really nothing because if you didn't surcharge, they don't actually charge you a fee. So it's really great because you can surcharge your customers, know you're compliant, but also know that the amount that you're getting charged is just a little bit out of the surcharge fee itself.
Yep. And I know that there's actually a number of credit cards out there that I actually take advantage of one where I can pay, where I get 3% back in cash
Yep,
for anything that I actually use. So I don't, as a customer, it doesn't affect me as much, or I can make the decision to get my points or anything like that.
that's
So
cool. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
that's great.
Well, I know that I don't know, did you have any other items that you want to go through or?
No, I think that's been a great tour so far. I mean, unless we're missing anything, that's awesome.
Well, we can go through, and I think what we wanted to open up the floor for
Yeah,
questions as well. So this will be a
absolutely.
perfect time, 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Lily, do we
Awesome.
have any questions that have come through?
yeah, we do. We have some really great ones. Our first question is, what versions of BC is this compatible with?
Yeah, it's compatible with anything over the last 2 years, like 22 major version and up. So you should be good there. If you want to host it yourself, that is also available, but we really recommend that you do the latest versions for that.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, we have another one. It says that they don't use sales orders.
Mhm.
They bill for services and just create sales invoices. Can they still
Yep.
tie these payment methods to the customer record?
Yes.
And will the
So
customer payments settle against the sales invoices? That was a lot, so if you need to repeat that, I will.
yeah, we actually support service orders as well. Just as I didn't want to go into that, but you could do an authorization on service order. But if you wanted to actually create a transaction on the sales invoice, I didn't show it, but the little payment button is there as well.
Okay, wow, we've got a lot in here. Okay.
Nice.
Another one is, can the Velocio Pay website be branded to their organization?
Like in like basically where it says, let's just say Patrick Patrick Com or whatever. Yes,
Pa-
so they would
Pa-
say
Patrick Court, we're gonna go out and make some sales.
Patrick Corp. Dot, it wouldn't necessarily be patrickcorp.com. It would be in the front. We use a little portal that's called Clever Division. And that would be the main domain, but the actual front of that would actually be the name of the company, and the branding, as you see, all shows the company as well.
So
Oh,
where
perfect.
where the
So,
Ve- where the Velocio Pay logo was, that would be the company
Yeah,
logo.
it would be
Yep.
whatever the company is, their logo, their name, everything else.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just an example for today.
perfect. Okay. Oh, got some more popping up. Lost my spot. Just a second.
Not a problem. While
Okay.
you're pulling that up, Lily, I think I'll just add in one. That's one thing that I know that, like, when we talked about security, and Patrick mentioned that, sending emails out to people to say, hey, listen, this is going to be coming, so that it's not a phishing attempt or anything like that. But one thing I hear from a lot of our customers is that having that branding is very valuable, so that they can
Yeah,
understand that it's a consistent experience.
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, the next one. Is there a way to distinguish which sales invoices can be paid with an HSA card for healthcare?
Oh, that's a good question. So, meaning that they're flagged as those are the only ones eligible for HSA. I know that we have the ability to filter certain transactions by rules, and I believe that that would include HSA, but I haven't been asked that in a while. I'm going to say 75% yes, but we'll follow up with an
Yeah.
affirmative after the call. But because, like I said, we can even filter by transaction type. So, like as an example, we might only allow people to pay within their own country. The transactions are divided by Canada and the U.S. We actually filter by that, and the card as well. So HSA is similar to that. We can flag it as HSA, and they only can use it for that. So that's a really good question. I would, like I said, 75% sure that that's a yes.
All right. Does anyone taking payments over the phone or in person need a license for BC? Do we know that answer?
If they're using VC, the answer is yes. Now, if they just want to take payment, meaning that they want to, I guess the best way to put it, we've had people that the salespeople in the field and they don't necessarily use BC
Yeah.
and they just need to send an invoice to somebody. The answer is yes. There is a customer fate or a pardon me, employee facing portal that we can demo if we have enough time, where they can go in and actually create a transaction with outside of BC, send the transaction to the customer for payment, and then we bring it into BC as an open receivable. So the answer is
Cool.
yeah.
Perfect. All right. And we have a few more questions in here, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to ask one more. And then I
Sure.
have a note of all of these questions that when we follow up, we can answer those for everyone. So the last question is there a big difference between the interface of F&O and BC?
They're well, sure. They're pretty. I mean, they're fairly similar. I have F&O on here as well. I mean, they use a Microsoft paradigm that I call it kind of the Outlook kind of paradigm, which is to where you can see certain things. So let me see if I can do it real quick. Like, let's see here.
Tell you what,
So
Lily, while Patrick's getting that ready,
Yes.
what's the number that I need to be selecting from?
All right. Go ahead and pick, let's say 1 through 15.
Okay, we'll do that.
So this is F&O, right? F&Os, if we were going to go look, they're very similar in a lot of respects, but F&O is just a much kind of bigger product, if you will, to where like if we were to look at let's say the customer form, which they call a customer card in BC, this is the customer card in BC, whereas this is F&O doesn't really kind of consider things to be a card. This is what F&O looks like. So F&O kind of, if you remember back in the day where Office had the big ribbon up at the top, you do have that ability to go through and see a lot more options. Whereas in BC, the ribbon is a little bit more limited. But overall, the products are fairly similar. I wouldn't say they're right on target or exactly the same, but if you kind of know your way around one, you can pretty much figure out your way around the other. So, yeah,
But definitely both of them are an alternative.
totally. Well, I mean, they're
Yeah.
just different. They're totally, one F&O is a really big product. Yeah, really.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. That's awesome. Great. Any other questions, Lily?
Um, I do have one really quick. Do you guys
Yeah.
have an account payable demo, or is that something we can create?
And AP don't we don't do credit
And
cards for AP right now,
Yeah.
so which would be expense management. The only way that VelosioPay takes things in BC or F&O is on the AR side as collections or pay, customer payment.
All
Sorry,
right.
Seth.
Thank you. Eric, do you have that number?
All right, I
Lucky
do
day?
have that number. Lucky day. Number 6 is what I came up with.
Number
Number
six.
six. All right, let me see.
Yeah.
Okay, Courtney Paisley, it is your lucky day. You get the $50 Amazon gift card. Congrats.
Woo!
Good job,
Awesome.
Courtney. Woo!
Yes, you will be hearing from us shortly with that gift card. So keep an eye on your inbox. And everyone else, also before we head out, I do want to let you know to keep an eye on your inbox for a follow-up email, which will include a link to the webinar recording and any other assets that may be beneficial for you guys. With that being said, this was a great webinar. Thank you so much to Eric and Patrick and Jeff. Thanks for coming. And thank you for everyone else for spending your time with us.
Like,
Bye.
thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.